Nintendo recently announced the tragic news that they plan to close the Wii U and 3DS eShops as of March 2023. That's not a problem, right? Nintendo will surely make some of its older titles available by other means. Right? Well, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but at the time of writing, the video game giant says they have no plans to spin up any sort of replacement service. If it ain't on the Switch Online membership, there's a good chance it'll be gone for good. Don't panic though, there is still time to get your hands on those 3DS titles you've been meaning to play, but you're going to need to act fast. For this list, we're taking a look at the 3DS games you should make your priority to buy before the eShop closes down. We won't be covering games that have received ports to the Switch or other devices, so don't expect to see the likes of the Ace Attorney trilogy, as they'll still be available elsewhere once the eShop is gone. We'll be covering the must-buy Wii U titles in a separate list, so keep an eye out for that one as well. I'm Ashton from Triple Jump, and here are the 10 video games you must buy before the 3DS eShop closes. Number 10, Rhythm Paradise Megamix. Been spending most our lives living in a rhythm paradise. Megamix. Oh. Back in the late 2000s and early 2010s, rhythm games were big business and you didn't have to miss out on the fun because you had a little console. Prior to the release of Rhythm Paradise Megamix in 2015, the Rhythm series was well established, having already gotten Game Boy Advance, DS and Wii owners into the groove. Once Rhythm Paradise Megamix came along, 3DS players got to join in with the fun as well. The game is comprised of over 100 different mini-games, some of which hail from the series' previous entries. They each require players to either press buttons or tap on the screen in time with the music in order to complete certain tasks. 1 minute you might be a military bird pecking to the beat, and the next you're a samurai fighting off hordes of monsties. If you're looking for expansive lore and rich multidimensional characters, then Rhythm Paradise Megamix isn't going to be for you. If you're looking for a fun way to pass the time with some fun mini-games and a funky as all heck soundtrack though, then you're going to have a wonderful time. Number 9, Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates. 2 games in one entry. We do spoil you. I promise we did try our best to choose between Fire Emblem Awakening and its successor Fire Emblem Fates, but we can't help but recommend you buy a copy of each while you still have the chance. Awakening sees the player character working as a tactician for Chrom, the Prince of Elise, and his army, known as the Shepherds. Throughout the game, players must carefully plan the army's attacks in order to overrun the undead invaders that threaten to overrun the land. Gameplay-wise, Fates is very similar to Awakening, but this time the protagonist is drawn into a war between their birthplace and their adoptive home, and they must choose which side with whom to ally themselves. Though there are different paths to take, players only get to own one when they buy the game. And if they want the others, well, they'll have to purchase the DLC. It's a bit of a weird system, but we'll let it slide on account of how good Fire Emblem Fates is. Don't worry if you've never played a Fire Emblem game before, because both Awakening and Fates both feature self-contained stories that newcomers will easily be able to get into. You're going to have to get into them quickly though, there's not long left until the eShop shuts. Number 8, Metroid: Samus Returns. Have you ever got a craving for some sci-fi adventure that only a badass galactic bounty hunter like Samus Aran can satisfy? Do you want said sci-fi action to be portable with just a hint of 3D? Then you need Metroid: Samus Returns, the 3DS remake of 1991's Metroid 2: Return of Samus. It's the year 20X5, and the Galactic Federation has sent a group of elite soldiers to the planet SR388 to investigate the parasitic organisms known as Metroids. The squad soon go missing, though not before they are able to send data back to the Federation confirming the existence of Metroids on the planet. Realizing the threat they pose, the Federation sends Samus Aran to the planet to destroy the species once and for all. Using all of Samus's abilities, including her grapple beam, power bombs and super missiles, players must explore the planet and dispatch as many of the hostile Metroids as they possibly can. Though the plot of Metroid: Samus Returns is much the same as Metroid 2, the 3DS title offers players updated graphics, a new control system and new gameplay mechanics. So if you're after a classic Metroid experience that's been refined for a modern audience, you really need to look no further. Number 7, Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. We've seen some adorable games in our time, but we're struggling to think of one that's quite as cute as Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. Originally released in 2010 for the Nintendo Wii under the title Kirby's Epic Yarn, the game was ported to the 3DS in 2019 and actually ended up being one of the last games released for the console. Whilst going about his business one day, Kirby finds a delicious looking tomato and, since he's a Kirby of large appetite, he decides to nosh on that bad boy. Sadly for him, the tomato is cursed and he is transported to Patchland, where he is transformed into Yarn. He loses his power to inhale and the ability to fly, but is granted the power to transform. He meets Prince Fluff, who explains that the evil Yin Yarn has separated Patchland, once united by magical yarn, into several pieces. Being a helpful chap, Kirby teams up with Prince Fluff to reunite Patchland once and for all. Not only is Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn a whole bunch of cutesy fun, but it also comes with a number of features the original lacked, such as additional abilities for Kirby, amiibo support, and new minigames. Number 6, Persona Q Shadow of the Labyrinth. Some of the most brilliant innovations are made by taking things that people already like and combining them into one thing. Breakfast and burritos, bam! Breakfast burrito. Chips, cheese and gravy, voila! Poutine! Persona and Etrian Odyssey, shazam! Persona Q Shadow of the Labyrinth. Shadow of the Labyrinth sees the characters from Persona 3 and 4 drawn into another world by a mysterious force and sent into a version of Yasugami High School. The group meets with Zen and Rei, a duo whose memories have been lost, and they must work together in order to traverse the school's labyrinth and seek the treasure that will restore Zen and Rei's memories. In terms of gameplay, Shadow of the Labyrinth lifts its dungeon crawling from Etrian Odyssey. Players must explore the maze-like levels, all whilst looking for treasures and fighting the hostile shadows using their Persona abilities. If you're a fan of either the Persona series or the Etrian Odyssey series, then you'll very much enjoy the blend of gameplay styles on offer in Persona Q Shadow of the Labyrinth. Heck, even if you're not a fan of either, if you like RPGs, dungeon exploration and puzzles, then you'll find something to like here. Number 5, The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. You might not have noticed, but we love a good pun here at Team Triple Jump, and it's for that reason that we've absolutely no qualms in recommending The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. You know, because the main character is called Link, and he can travel between worlds, thus linking them. It's fine if you don't get it, it's a bit of a thinker. In this instalment of the Legend of Zelda series, the evil sorcerer Yuga kidnaps the Hyrulean princess and takes her to a parallel world of Lorule. Hyrule? Lorule? Do you get it? Anyway, Link is able to obtain a magical bracelet which allows him to travel between the two, and sets out on a quest to find the ill-fated princess before it's too late. The vast majority of A Link Between Worlds is played from a top-down perspective, but the developers introduced a cool mechanic where Link can move across walls like he's painted on them, which gives a whole new dimension to the gameplay and the puzzles. So what are you waiting for? Better link that credit card to your Nintendo account while you still can. There's no telling if you ever Ganon be able to get your hands on this one ever again. Those puns were terrible. Can someone please fire the writer? Jesus Christ. Number 4, Kid Icarus, Uprising. By the time Kid Icarus Uprising made its way onto the 3DS in 2012, it had been over 2 decades since the franchise had seen a release. You might think that the world had forgotten all about the series by then, but it turns out that you'd be wrong, as both critics and audiences were very pleased with the game and all it had to offer. Inspired by Greek mythology, though in the loosest possible sense, Kid Icarus Uprising follows the angel Pit as he embarks on a mission to thwart Medusa, goddess of darkness, and Hades, lord of the underworld. It's Hades' plan to provoke a war against humanity so that he can swoop in and claim their souls for himself. The greedy git. The game combines different gameplay styles. Some of the game is ground-based and plays out in third person, allowing players to explore the environment and battle enemies, whereas other segments take place in the air and see players fighting their foes on rails. If you're after a third-person shooter with the spot of mythological flair, you could really do worse than Kid Icarus Uprising. Considering that the developer closed down shortly after making the game, it doesn't look like a sequel's on the cards, so it's best to grab this one while you still can. Number 3, Shin Megami Tensei 4. If you're a newcomer to the JRPG scene, it can be a bit daunting to figure out where to start. Fear not though, because I, Ashton, am here to help you make a great selection, and since it's both accessible to new players and only available for a short time, I highly recommend you kickstart your JRPG journey with Shin Megami Tensei 4. The game is set in the fictional kingdom of Mikado and follows the samurai Flynn as he attempts to protect the population from hostile demons. When it's revealed that Black Samurai is actually trying to turn the citizens into demons, Flynn and his companions set out on a quest to stop her, placing them in the midst of a battle between angelic and demonic forces. Shin Megami Tensei 4 plays out in a combination of third-person exploration and turn-based combat. Players must traverse the 3D landscape and battle the numerous monsters that come across their paths. Despite some spikes in difficulty, critics and players had a lot of praise for Shin Megami Tensei 4 upon its release, particularly for its battle system, story and graphics. If you plan on dipping your toe into the demon-infested waters, you'd best do it quickly as they won't be around for much longer. Number 2, Super Mario 3D Land. Oh, Peach. You think that after being kidnapped by Bowser for the 4,000th time, she'd look at beefing up security in the Mushroom Kingdom. Not that we're victim blaming, of course, but come on, Peach, at least install some CCTV or a burglar alarm or something. For Super Mario 3D Land, plucky plumber Mario is once again drafted in to rescue the princess from the clutches of the maniacal Bowser. Not only has he absconded with Her Royal Highness yet again, but he's also nicked the super leaves from Peach's tail tree and plans to use them to grant his minions new powers. The 3D platformer combines elements of older side-scrolling Mario titles with those found in the series' more recent 3D games, creating a gameplay experience that is unlike anything fans had experienced previously. Super Mario 3D Land received universal critical acclaim, with reviewers complimenting the fast-paced nature of the title, the familiar level design and music, and the innovative new mechanics that the game introduced to the series. Not everyone was impressed though, as alleged animal rights activist Peter claimed that Mario's tanuki suit promoted the skinning of animals for fur. We'll highly recommend you ignore them though, they're just trying to ruin your fun. And number 1, Luigi's Mansion and Luigi's Mansion 2. If you're a fan of silly spookums in the likes of Scooby-Doo and the Addams Family, then you'll probably get a lot of enjoyment out of the Luigi's Mansion series. Luigi's Mansion 3 is thankfully available on the Nintendo Switch and doesn't look to be going anywhere anytime soon. But the first 2 games are now only available to buy on the 3DS, though not for long. The first game sees Luigi searching for Mario in a haunted mansion, which he's tricked into thinking he has won in a contest. Armed with the Poltergust 3000, Luigi must traverse the manor and capture any ghosts that get in his way. Gameplay-wise, the sequel is very similar, only this time, Luigi gets to use the Poltergust 5000 and must find the shards of the Shattered Dark Moon, a magical object that has the power to pacify the ghosts that live in the area. Both titles went down well with critics, who praised the game for their graphics, their exploration, and their puzzles. There really is something for everyone in the Luigi's Mansion series, and we're just praying to any deity that will listen that Nintendo do something to preserve these spooky treasures. Best to buy a copy now though, just in case they don't.